Release O-Mix. Release O-Mix. Release O-Mix. Release O-Mix. Release O-Mix. Release O-Mix. Release O.
How's it going, everybody? Today I've got something really cool to show you. This is the latest Infinity Box release from 52 Toys Machine Cube series, the IB-13 Alien Xenomorph. It's a really cool figure, and I'm looking forward to showing this off today. In case you don't know, Infinity Box is the rebrand of the Megabox series, which is a bit broader in scope than Beastboxes. This line includes mythical creatures such as the Chinese dragon, the Chiron, Baihu, their own invention, the AMTS vehicle teams, or in this case, licensed figure designs. Also, there was actually a prior release of the Xenomorph around 5 years ago under the Megabox line. More of a cartoony chibi style, whereas the new release is a lot more realistic and proportionately accurate. Today, we're going to take a look at what comes in the box. I'm going to talk about figure details, I'll do a transformation demo, I'll give it a box grade, and then I'll wrap it up with some final comments. So let's jump right in. So starting off, we're going to set this guy aside here and take a look at the box. And it has beautiful box art with nice holographic foil stamping. You should also note that this is a VIP release, which is a special edition that's sent out to anyone who bought a VIP membership late last year. In this case, I think the only real difference is that this alien has blood splatters and that kind of thing on it. I don't look at this and see it as a huge upgrade from the standard figure release. It's kind of a nice little touch, but it doesn't do a whole lot for me personally. Yeah, it's kind of cool, but so basically if you buy a standard figure, you're not going to be missing that much. So there again, we have some beautiful artwork all the way around the box here. I love that foil stamping, that looks great. Details about the figure here. So produced by 52 Toys, obviously, and the mechanical design is by a separate group. I believe it's a Japanese duo. It might be one guy, but I think it's two people, called the Thunderbird Workshop, and I know that because I ran it through a translator on my phone. Just happen to know the name of that team, and they do outstanding figures. Noteworthy here is the transformation difficulty. This is maximum difficulty, and it is. I am going to show you that. That's going to be something that needs to be discussed, basically, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. Worth noting here that the official product name here is Beastbox Infinity Xenomorph. Looks like 52 Toys is playing around with the Infinity Box branding a little bit here. I believe the way they're treating it is Beastbox is kind of the umbrella term for essentially anything that turns into a cube. And then they have Infinity Box, and I don't think they're doing Fantasy Box anymore, but basically any other of the box types are under that umbrella. So in this case, they just called it Infinity. Something else that's noteworthy here is it's licensed by Disney. I kind of forgot about that. So the Alien franchise is a Fox franchise. That's basically who owns it, 20th Century Fox Studios. But Disney just recently bought them out about a year or two ago or something like that. So now they own this property too. I guess if you want to do the Alien franchise, you got to go through Disney, like you do for every other franchise on the planet. Disney owns it all. So we'll move on to what comes in the box real quick here. Not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but yes, basically you do get catalogs. Infinity Box figures, especially the licensed ones, by their nature do not come with a character card, so they leave that up to the studio to describe their character, I guess. It comes with some collector cards. I don't think we need to take a look at that today. You get a box charger, of course, and instructions. And believe me, boy, you are going to need these. Just to kind of give you a quick peek here of what we're getting into. This thing has 43 instructions. It's not the sheer number that's really an imposition. It's really just what goes on while you're transforming it. And again, we'll get into that. But in the meantime, we got some figure details to talk about, so let's get into this guy. The first thing I want to address right here is this is a shockingly high quality figure build. I mean, the joints feel completely sturdy. It is a rock solid piece. And at first blush, you might look at this and just say, yeah, it's black plastic, but that's actually not true. And I'll show you what I mean here in just a second. This whole thing is a very dark, smoky blue transparent plastic. And hopefully I'm picking this up on camera here. And that is the entire piece. So yeah, you can really see it in the tail and a little bit in the feet there too. Yes, essentially what's a common complaint in the action figure collection community is transparent plastic equals weak plastic. And that is really not true at all for this figure. It is solid. This thing is actually built quite a bit better than a lot of figures that do have opaque plastic. It's just really surprising how tight the joints are. It's just a sturdy little tank of a little action figure piece for sure. Another thing you might notice too is it has a lot of exposed screws. You'll see that mainly on like the interior of the limbs and that kind of thing. So it's one of those deals where once you start seeing them, you really notice them and they're kind of like all over the place. Then you have these, I'm not sure what you call them, button screws, and then there's pin screws and stuff in here holding this whole thing together. But anyways, yeah, it's one of those things that you really don't see it, believe it or not, unless you actually start looking for it. But it doesn't detract from the look of this figure, in my opinion, really at all. So it's a very, very nice looking piece. I mean, the sculpt here is pretty spot on for the actual Xenomorph figure. And with regard to the plastic, again, I'll just double back on that for just a second. It does feel kind of dense. I mean, I feel like this figure's got some heft to it, and you really notice it when you transform it into its cube mode. So a couple other features we'll talk about here for just a second. This figure does have an inner mouth gimmick, as you might know if you've actually seen the movies, I guess. Something that the aliens can do is stick out their inner jaw and bite a victim, basically. And this one has a spring-loaded mouth that just shoots right out there. Bang, like that. Which I think is very cool. Nice little action figure gimmick. And something else I am curious about is, given these blood splatters, do they glow in the dark? Yeah, those blood splatters are reflective, but they don't actually glow in the dark. And there again, those blood splatters do reflect off of UV light here. Interestingly, it's the dome that glows in the dark, not the actual blood splatters, so that is interesting. So I'm going to come right out and assume that for a standard release version of this figure, the dome on this thing is actually going to glow in the dark. I see no reason why 5.2 Toys would have put out a separate version of this, but we shall see. Don't hold me to that though, because I don't know that for a fact. Yeah, that's really freaking cool. Nice. Something else that we need to talk about here, which I've already kind of hinted at, is this figure's posability. It is extremely good. I mean, this guy can pose effortlessly in just about any configuration you want to get it. So you can have him crouching, you can have him stalking on all fours if you want. I mean, it's just insane how easy it is to pose this thing. So we'll touch on that a little closer here. Yeah, so the head can turn in all kinds of different directions. The jaw does open and close. Both arms are fully articulated. You got a great amount of shoulder rotation there. You can bend at the elbow, can bend in about 135 degrees, something like that. Got a pretty good wrist bend here. And even the palm at the fingertips can curl up and down. It's very nice. The legs can rotate completely out at the hips. They can rotate forward. You got a perfect knee bend here. Can go back almost 90 degrees and a full range of motion on the feet. You can get this guy in just about any pose you need. And the tail has a bunch of segments on it that can actually be curled up and posed and all that kind of thing. You can get that barb up here like he does in the movies. And another thing is there's only one joint that has it, but there is rotation here. So you can get this over the side just like so. So you can get those action poses really slick. I mean, this is super cool. As far as action figure goes, this thing is top shelf. This is seriously one of the best pieces I have seen for a posable humanoid action figure in a very long time. That also happens to fold up into a 2-inch cube. Just a quick size comparison. Yeah, he's pretty much humanoid size, so he holds up very well to our boy Unis here, who also has a very insane range of motion. With regard to posability, I would say the Xenomorph actually has a little bit of an edge over Unis here. Well, it depends on how you look at it. I would say that because it actually has an articulated tail, completely rotating wrists, and the hands can curl up and all that kind of thing. But Unis does actually have to be able to hold weapons, so he has a little 3mm port there, so slight difference there. So again, that just kind of depends on how you're looking at it. The big drawback to both of these figures, which really isn't that much of a drawback to be honest with you, is that they can't rotate at the waist. But for a regular action figure these days, that's kind of what you expect. These have that limitation because they do actually have to fold up into cubes, and just the mechanics of that wouldn't allow for it. So, but it doesn't matter because you can get this thing, again, in just about any pose that you need to, pretty much effortlessly. I mean, you tell me what's wrong with that. So there again, carrying that thought over about the mechanics that this has to transform into a 2-inch cube, take a really good look at this figure and tell me where you see within this particular object something that looks like it should be able to turn into a cube. What's absolutely astounding about this figure is that they hid all the flat panels. I mean, you got a little bit of a something on the back here, but not really. It is unfreaking believable to me that an object that looks like this, with this shape, with limbs, a head, and a tail, can turn into a cube. And it does. Full disclosure here. And we're going to talk about this in just a little bit when I get into the transformation demo. The fact that this figure is labeled a high difficulty transformation, the absolute highest, is no frickin' joke. So I've been seeing this on the message boards. A lot of other people have had trouble transforming this thing, and I am no exception. Just gotta get that out there. I've tried transforming this thing a few times, and I got mixed results. When I do my transformation demo today, what you're gonna be looking at is me doing this transformation. Obviously, I am gonna be editing this segment for clarity and for brevity, that kind of thing, which I always do, just to kind of keep things moving. So you don't get bored with the video and you can follow the steps pretty clearly and that kind of thing. But I'm not going to be editing this to get like the best result, if you will. What I do right here on this recording is what we're going to see, and we're just going to see basically if I can get it in the box. And the ultimate result of what I get out of this transformation right here and now is what's going to go into the box grade of this particular figure. So I guess at that, let's just get right into the transformation demo. So there again, the figure with this high level of transformation difficulty, I would definitely recommend keeping the instructions handy. And not only that, I would follow, in this case, every instruction carefully. They actually have some text on here that tells you some little bits of information just so you know what you're getting into from step to step. Now each step, I'll just say up front, is not always 100% clear because this is an organically shaped object that has to rotate, move around in 3D space and whatnot. That's kind of hard to get in a 2D space. You know, how do you show that with line art and that kind of thing? So I think they did a very good job of showing adequately how the transformation needs to go. So some of this basically you have to intuit based on what they're showing you and kind of where you feel the piece moving or whatever. So let's jump right into it. Now the first steps they show you, and this is certainly true for a lot of Beastboxes, definitely was true for Neo Geo. If you want to see a review of that and see how that transformation went, I'll have that listed in the description and I'll have a link right here just so you can go back and refer to that, see how that one went. But anyways, the first step is essentially you want to get all the pieces exploded out, kind of up and out of the way. That's what they show you in the instructions. They want you to move the limbs all the way out to the side like that. So basically you're going to rotate the shoulders and the hips straight up as if they were out on their sides or whatever. The toes are going to be pointed forward and then the hands should be splayed out to the sides, palms down. Then what you're going to do is you're going to rotate from this piece right here, and you're going to want this crotch piece to rotate all the way up. We're going to try it with a little extra light shining on this figure here. So there again, yes, this crotch piece does need to rotate up. There's this other piece that's kind of connecting to it from the base of the tail. You may need to slide that out and down so you can rotate this piece all the way up and around like that. And then you're going to have basically you have kind of an arrow shape pointing towards the chest here. Then you're going to want to bring the tail straight down. So from the base of the tail here, you're going to rotate that up and back. That'll come up about like that. You want to get this flat piece pushed right up against the first joint on the tail, and you're going to push that up and all the way back. And that's going to rest flush up against the back of the figure here. Then from the second joint, you're going to pull that straight down. And something that I've come to find out is these pieces are really sharp and pointy plastic, and they're kind of painful to touch, so you kind of have to grab it from the side a little bit, and you want to rotate that down just like so. And then from the third joint, you're going to want to rotate that back like so, and then you're going to rotate this piece 180 degrees like that. Now for the base of the tail, there's actually a tab and post connection here. The tip of the tail is the tab that goes into that slot there, so you're just going to rotate that down and around, and it'll connect into that plate. So you're just going to want to make sure you push it in firmly so it's locked in there. Now from the crotch, we're going to rotate that down and around. So essentially this arrow piece is going to be pointing straight forward, and that'll rotate up and in like that. And you'll kind of feel it go straight into, it has a space that it naturally wants to fit into, and you'll feel it fold into there. So it'll fold in pretty securely like that. Got about that shape going on here. Then we're going to remove these shoulder pipe things. They're connected right here, right on the collarbone. You just want to pop that piece out like so. And then what you want to do is you're essentially going to get them up and out of the way. So you're going to rotate them back a little bit, and they're going to be kind of curled up perpendicular to the shoulders. So you get them about in that position right there just to kind of get them up and out of the way. Now for these bony back plates, they're on these rotating hinges here. This is kind of an unusual connection. They're not exactly tabbed in, but they sort of go up and over a hump. There's a little bump in there that they kind of slide over. So basically you're just going to push them out just a little bit sideways, and then they'll get up and over that hump like that. And then they just rotate down and out of the way for now. And here's an interesting piece. What I was talking about hiding all those flat spots. It took me a while to figure out the first time I transformed this. This is actually two separate pieces. The seam on this is so damn good that it looks like it's just one piece of plastic, but it's actually separated here. And you can also pop that back piece up because it is all one piece. Just pop that open like that. Okay, there we go. Took a little wiggling to get these pieces to separate, but finally got it here. That's something I will say about this particular figure. This is one of these where there's so many moving parts to get through the transformation that you kind of have to be mindful of where your fingers are placed, because as you're transforming it, you definitely don't want to knock any pieces out of position, because there is a lot of intricate tabs that have to come together to make this figure transform correctly. Now that we have these separated, they're basically on ball socketed arms, so you basically just want to rotate them down and around about like that. You're kind of getting them down to the back plate there. Down and out of the way for now. So you'll have about this configuration. Now for the center of the chest, that's going to come loose. There again, it's another one of those that's in there really tight, so you may need a little implement to get it to pop loose. So we're going to rotate that back and over like so for now. And then the shoulder and the rib cage is going to come down like that. So you got about that look going on here for now. So once you get it in this position, then there's an additional joint right here, and you're going to need to pop it out, separate it from that, and you're basically separating this piece from the back. And it's a really big tab. It's going to take a little bit of force to get it to separate. Comes out like that, and you'll just want that piece straightened out for now, about like that. Then you're going to rotate this piece straight down from that base hinge, about like that. What you're going to do is you're going to take this entire piece and rotate it all the way down and back and around. And in case any of the back plate spines are in the way, you may need to kind of maneuver them a little bit. Get them down and out of the way. Yeah, so before we get too carried away with this part, we do need to get this piece down here. Now, one thing I want to point out here, again, you got to follow the instructions carefully, is it says not to push this part into this gap. So there is actually a gap right here. It kind of looks like it wants to go in there. Apparently, they're telling you don't do that. So at least for this part, this is another one of those where you're kind of wanting to just sort of feel out where the contour goes and then feel it slide into a groove, more or less. So now we want to push the head down into this groove here. This might be kind of hard to show off on camera here, but there is essentially an open gap right here, and that's going to connect to this big wedge piece right here. So you're just going to basically push that piece down, and again, following the contour where it naturally wants to go. And this is unfortunately one of those things where you can't really see what you're doing, you just sort of have to feel it. So I guess I can show a little bit of a gap right there. I don't know if that's showing up on camera or not, and I don't think you need to force it too terribly hard, but you definitely need to give it a firm push to get it down onto that groove there. Then you got about this going on. Now we're going to rotate these back tail pieces and kind of get them up against the cheeks. So you get about that shape right there. Then you're going to rotate these pieces down, these tail tips. We're going to leave that alone for now. It's basically going to be hugging the side of the face for the time being. Well, there again, according to the instructions, this should be about the shape of the tail. So essentially what's going to happen is you've got this little tab piece that's going to hook into the back of the head here. I want to point out that I haven't really been cranking on this thing, the transformations that I've done on it so far, but I've already got a little bit of a fracture right there on the back of the thing. It's not a huge fracture, not even sure if that's picking up on camera, but I definitely got a stress crack on there just from having transformed this thing. So we can rotate these pieces down and out of the way, just so you can see what I'm doing here. And that's going to slide straight in, like so. There again, you don't need to crank on this thing too hard to get these to push in, but you definitely want to give it enough pressure so that the tabs are securely connected. There again, according to the instructions, this should be the accurate look here. Now this next part is a little bit tricky. It's doable, but definitely not totally straightforward. So there's this sort of angled notch here. It's going to have to connect to this little groove right here on the side for these backplate pieces here. So you're sort of going to slide it up and over. Yeah, in that case, it just snapped right into place, so that's good. There we go. So it's one of those things where you definitely got to get it into a position, and you kind of have to feel your way around it to make sure you're doing it right. Definitely felt like something locked into place there, so Okay, now is the appropriate time to secure these front pieces, whatever you want to call them. They secure in a couple of different locations. So yeah, there's a tab right here that's going to connect in that space. I don't think it's really showing up on camera here. Then this other groove piece right here that's going to connect into that notch. And again, you're basically just following the contour of the side of the face. And then this tail piece needs to angle down so it'll fit into that slot. There we go. And repeat on the other side. Angle that piece in. And that's about what you're going for. So you do want to make sure that the top of these pieces are kind of flush with the head. Now these back spine pieces, that's one of the easier parts. You're basically just going to collapse them into kind of a tab and groove connection. They fold in on themselves. So this piece will come down like so. You just want to make sure you get it pushed in all the way. Same for the top piece. You're going to fold it in on itself. And they do follow kind of an interesting contour around the back side of the figure here. And then for these collarbone pieces, they actually connect in a couple of different spots. So basically you've got this little slot right here, this tab and slot connection, and another piece right here, and they lock into place very securely. We'll repeat that process on the other side here. About like that, bring it down. And it never hurts to do some scrunching as you go just to make sure your tabs are secure in place. These pieces should look about like this when you have that part done. Now for the hips, this is a part that you kind of need to be careful with how you're rotating it. So you're going to rotate from the hip and basically bring that piece up and over. And what you're looking to do is get the screw joint facing forward. So you want to have it in about that position. You're also going to be rotating from that second joint right here. So at least for the time being, you probably just want to make sure the back of the knee is pointed forward and the feet are facing completely backwards. So rotate the other one here, up and over. Yeah, we got them in about that position. Okay, looking good. Now from that second joint, we're going to rotate them straight down. Again, you don't want to move the hip joint. You're just going to rotate that forward so all the screws are facing forward, the toes are pointed up. About like that. Now we're going to rotate the feet back and to the side there. So you're going to get them in about that position. Back and down and to the side, so you got them about like that. Now we're going to rotate the legs straight up from the hip. You're going to rotate that. Then you're going to bring this down. This is a huge tab piece that's going to go inside that groove there. You're going to fold that down and around, and it'll lock into place. And all of these, the heel spur is going to fold straight down and in. It'll just kind of collapse naturally into that space. And you got that going on there. Now here's another tab and groove connection. It's a huge tab. That's going to go into the top of the foot here, into that space. So basically the way the instructions show it for now is to go ahead and connect it, to fold these pieces back and connect those feet into place with that tab. I'm going to see if maybe I want to hold off on that for now. And I'm doing that because this last step is the one that gives me the hardest time. I'm going to see if holding off on pushing those feet into that tab is going to give me a little bit of wiggle room to kind of help with this last step here, which is basically getting the arms kind of folded up into position here. Okay, so if you have the arms in this position, basically you'll have this notch pointed straight forward. You're going to want to rotate that 90 degrees to get the tab pointed up, and then you'll have the palm facing backwards. Now we're going to rotate the shoulders straight up, like so. And from this interior joint, we're going to rotate this piece down about 45-degree angles, something like that. And then you're going to want to get the shoulders straight up against that piece. Now here's the tricky part. There's a tab right here, but it doesn't just tab straight into this piece. It sort of slots in, so you kind of have to get it from the backside and then pull it forward. So do the same on that side, and I'm probably not going to capture this on camera, but we'll see. So you got about that look going on there. And so we'll flip this around here, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to turn this wrist joint up and over about 90 degrees, something like that. We're going to rotate this piece so you got this tab and groove notch here. That's going to fold in on itself. All right, so here's a little bit of a moment of truth here. Basically, we need to close this lid, and that should theoretically get this whole thing done here. And you know what? I think I am going to go ahead and push these feet inside the tab just to kind of make sure I got everything lined up where it's supposed to go. And we're going to pop the lid on this. Now, what makes this last step tricky here is that there's a tab and groove connection on the inside of the bicep and the inside of the forearm too. So it's got to connect basically in 4 spots. And you have to have everything lined up completely perfectly. And actually these hands need to be turned the other way here. I'm going to bring them out like so, about like that. I don't know, man. I don't think I got it. Well, no. Man, this one definitely needs some scrunching just to get, yeah, something about this is just fighting, holding in place there. And you can kind of see where this groove, it's kind of wanting to separate out. It doesn't want to hold completely in place here. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like I felt something pop loose here. Yeah, that is fighting me. It does not want to hold into place here. Look at that. You push on the foot and then it just pops right back out. There are so many interconnected tabs on this thing, and the tolerances are very tight, so you have to get this thing absolutely precise just to get this loaded up into its box form. Come to think of it, one more interesting anomaly with this figure is it doesn't have any standard 2, 3, or 5 millimeter round ports. It's all custom tabs designed specifically for this figure. This is an unusual one for me that, I mean, generally, I'm an advocate for scrunching things just to get things tightened up or whatever when you get a beast into its box mode. But in this case, that is actually serving against me because it's kind of starting to pop some pieces loose here. It definitely forms a sort of a cube. I mean, I feel like something's kind of bulging out on the bottom here because it's not completely flat on the base here. It does have some flat sides though, so that's kind of nice. Seems to be flat on the top. It's just the base here that's for the most part. That's the only problem here. But I think I got everything secured the way it's supposed to go. Moment of truth here is, can I get this damn thing into its box charger? So, and by the way, just to illustrate how much trouble I've had with this figure, the other times that I've transformed it before, you see these scratches here? This is on the interior of the box. That's from me cramming this thing into its box charger. I mean, that's just how tight of a fit it is. What do we have? Okay. So it did actually fit into its box charger, but man, is it tight. Check this out. It's pretty rare that I have a Beastbox or Infinity Box, Mega Box, or whatever that I can't get out of the cube just by shaking it out from doing that. There's only been 1 or 2 other instances where I've had a figure do that. But I will say at least the box does close. So man, are the tolerances really tight on this thing. That is unbelievable. Now it's time to give this face munching space cockroach a box grade. This is my rating system of 6 categories of 5 points each for a total score of anything from 0 to 30 points. I feel like this all-new version of the alien Xenomorph is more to 5.2 Toys than just a license deal. It's a labor of love. This figure is meticulously crafted and a spot-on rendition of the alien figure. 5 out of 5. Awesome blackish blue transparent plastic, a great spring-loaded jaw gimmick, incredible articulation, and the fact that this thing can transform gives this figure a lot of bang for its buck for a score of 5 out of 5. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This transformation is at best problematic. I've tried transforming it a few times, and the best result I've gotten is what is roughly a cube shape that barely fits in its box charger. The downside of an incredibly detailed, organically shaped figure is its dependency on interconnected joints with very tight tolerances and no room for error. The name of the game for this line is stuff that transforms into cubes, and the IB-13 alien Xenomorph nearly fails at this. 1 out of 5. Where this figure really shines is just how frickin' awesome it is as a posable little action figure. This is a really great figure design, and definitely one of the best that 5.2 Toys has ever produced. This nets an easy 5 out of 5. This is a premium showpiece with high quality plastic that feels dense and sturdy, firm joints, and incredible detailing. 5 out of 5. As far as how much fun this piece is, it's this weird dichotomy of being a really fun action figure while also having a pretty difficult and frankly frustrating transformation. I haven't particularly enjoyed the excessive amount of time it's taken me to try figuring this thing out, and after multiple attempts, the reward for my effort is barely being able to cram this thing in its box charger. But there again, it's a great action figure. Posing this thing is a total joy. 3 out of 5. And that brings the box grade total to 24 out of 30. So there's an in-depth look at the 5.2 Toys Infinity Box Alien Xenomorph. What an awesome figure, and a bit of a tragedy. In my estimation, this should be one of the absolute best, if not the very best thing 5.2 Toys has ever produced in the Beastbox line. But it falls short as a transforming machine cube. Their figure designs are becoming increasingly more sophisticated over time, and I think this is one where they just push the envelope too far. The bottom line is, these figures need to be able to transform into a cube, and unfortunately, the more sophisticated their designs get, the more we see 5.2 Toys treat its box mode like an afterthought. One way or the other, the great thing about this line is the designs continue to amaze, and there's always something cool coming around the corner. A couple that I'm looking forward to seeing soon are the Fire Ant Deathmatch, and the first release of the all-new AMTS set, Toxotes, which you can bet I'll be reviewing on this channel. Thanks! I'll see you soon!